Hey guys, so what's been happening in the hobby this week? Well, I thought we'd have a little bit of a discussion on finding your style. Well, more accurately, I guess, finding your process or developing your process, as it were, and that ends up being your style, in some respects. Style is one of those words that I guess I put it in the title for this video, but, it is really more about, process and your workflow. And the style is something that comes out of that at the end, and we each have some sort of unique style or end result for our creativity. And in the hobby, it's to do with painting these miniatures, and you eventually do get to this point. And so I thought that'd be a really fun one for us to talk about today. I haven't talked about style before on these kinds of hobby chat videos, so I thought it'd be a fun one. And while we do that, I thought I'd get onto some Infinity, and we do these Yu Jing models here. Now I'm going to butcher the name, but they're called Suyan, I think, Suyin or Suyan immediate action unit. Anyway, it's a battle kitty, so that's what I want to paint. So we've got like the little kitty form here and the sort of humanoid version, and we're going to do this one in my custom scheme, and the battle kitty is going to be done in like black, so kind of the reverse of the scheme. So we'll do sort of more the teals and that sort of thing on this one, and then more the blacks on the kitty. So I thought that would be really nice. This will pair really well with the wolf that I've already got. So we've got like the cat and dog, and I think that's really cool. And I've got more of these in store in the future, but you can see the theme. I'm big on the pet class and the little animal sort of idea in these models. I think that's really fun. But I think this should be a good one to just discuss ideas on style and process, and just go through it. So let's get started, eh? So what is style? Well, as I alluded to in the intro, it's the sum of all the parts, your process, your likes, etc., everything that makes up you creatively, and it's the end result of all of that mixed together. So we'll break that down a bit, and we're going to go through it because, there are some lessons to be learnt there in analyzing it, your own style or your own process, and gleaning some answers from that to help you move forward if you feel like you're stuck or, hitting a wall, that sort of thing. Self-reflection, especially in creativity or in anything that you do really in life, is very healthy and helps, uncover some aspects that you may not have thought about before or, approached in a certain way. And you can then, reassess and create maybe a new pathway forward, and so specifically for hobby painting and miniature stuff, we're going to move into that. So, the first part is sort of looking at, what are some of the aspects of style or so on that contribute to that end result. I guess the first thing is, before we get into it, you can't really engineer style exactly. It's kind of like your handwriting. You have an innate kind of signature that is you, and it's very hard to push away from that. You can imitate styles. You can do a lot of that, and that's actually very healthy to developing your skills. But ultimately, no matter what you try to imitate, it will slowly rebound back towards something that actually has a lot more of you in it than the style that you're trying to mimic from like another artist or another group of artists or whatever it might be. So there's not really much point in trying to sort of force a style onto yourself. Rather, what you want to do is really dig into process and your I guess likes and dislikes within all of that help you refine what's already there. So think of it more like, your skills and so on in creativity, more as like, it's like raw iron, right? It hasn't been honed and crafted yet, but it is in the shape of the sword. It's not the old analogy where you start from scratch. You are actually wielding the sword. It's in your hand. You just don't know how to wield it yet. You haven't sharpened it. You haven't cleaned it. It's it's very raw, but the shape and all of that is all there already inside of you. So the way to go about this is by that self-reflection and looking at all of these things, you start to realize that you're in fact holding the sword in the first place, and that you can actually start to wield that and sharpen it and hone your skills. So that's like, I think from my point of view, that's how I like to look at it, rather than thinking about as completely raw, where you don't even have the sword, you don't even have the skills to start with. I think that's a bit of a wrong step, because it's sort of removing some of the real unique and wonderful aspects of a human being, the individual aspects that make up each of us. We all have these skills inside of us, these talents and so on, and many of them are not uncovered. They're hidden from view, and you don't actually realize that you're naturally good at something. We always talk about extolling the virtue of hard work over something like talent, which is a whole nother. This is starting to cusp on a topic that I'm actually very passionate about, but I won't talk about here, because talent is one of those very decisive things that will either put you on one side or the other when it comes to how you feel about talent. But for now, we're talking about just those innate abilities inside of you that help you along the way, which is another way of describing talent. But we all have it inside of us, and so just finding those things, and the first steps of figuring a lot of that out is thinking about things that you like. So what are the first steps that you can go about to developing along that style road or that process road? Well, thinking about the colors you like, that's a really obvious one. Not just thinking out the colors you like, but looking back at your series of miniatures that you've done in your life, and you'll notice some very big sort of patterns. And those patterns are going to be related to color, subject matter, a lot of elements, but color in particular. You're going to be gravitating towards certain color palettes, certain ranges within the color spectrum that you seem to go back to over and over again. This is pretty common. Everyone will have some kind of pattern like that. And the great thing about being a human being is that you're really good at identifying patterns. So you're going to find it, even if you don't think so. Just go and have a look at your range, look at the time you spent on your minis, and you'll notice that there is a pattern there. So that's giving you some hints as to the sort of color ranges that are within your natural kind of, ability range for creativity. That's going to be where you're going to maximize and get the most out of it. Not to say that you shouldn't do other color ranges or other experimentation. That's also very important. But there's going to be, I guess we'll call that the comfort zone, the area where you're most comfortable. And that's a great place to begin. Thinking about those things. What about those colors that you like? All of that sort of thing that culminate in those finished works. And then thinking about the processes you use for those colors. So those processes that you're using are going to affect how that end result is. So let's say in the case, for example, in the case of my process, so, my minis have a particular look, and I think that if you put them in a line, you'll start to pick them out. I've been doing this now long enough. We're going to move into time as well in a second, but, I've been doing it for long enough to where that style or that process has evolved and honed itself enough to where it's possible to pick it out of a crowd, pick it out of a group. And I know this because my friends, whenever we do like little group painting things and so on, little competitions in the club or whatever, most of the people that know me well can pick out a model that is probably mine, that I would have painted, that sort of thing. And that's because of the processes that I'm using over a long period of time, and the color choices are starting to really come together and sort of synergize, and you're getting this sort of next stage result for that type of thing. And you'll see that in painters, illustrators, that sort of thing. They'll use certain tools, certain media that they use in their work that start to become unified with them, and it starts to associate with them, and that's the forming of part of that style. So then we move into time as another aspect. So, with these processes, you might start to experiment to see what else you can do to encourage more of that sort of thing. So for me, it's like blends and things like that. You see me going from one color to another, incorporating those types of experimentations, and other techniques that help explore color and explore the palette, the range of color that are within your sort of sphere of most liked colors. But then we've got that time aspect. So time is another really important feature of developing your style. You don't just sort of instantly have it. It requires a lot of time, and ultimately you're not going to be able to really pick out all of the key elements that make up your style, that's for others to determine, right? You don't make it up yourself. As I said in the beginning, you can't really force your style. It's going to come naturally through your process. But time is a very important element, allowing things to cook. You have to, slow down, do the work. This is where that hard work part of the analogy of talent comes in. All life is hard work, right? Every aspect of life is hard. It's very rarely is it easy. And, it's no different for the hobby. You need to spend that time, get those reps in, and build up that honed skill. And that will help you to develop that. And if you're knowingly going into it, thinking about the things aesthetically that you like and trying to incorporate those things into your process, like it might be you really love certain methods of painting, you love dry brushing or something, or you really love an airbrush, or you really just love layering and using a brush and doing it in a very methodical kind of way, or even like an heavy metal kind of way, or you may really love washes and contrast paints and things like that, and so you want to explore that avenue. Then there's many YouTubers out there that focus on a lot of these different areas. So you might find something in those aesthetics that really pleases you, and you want to explore that too. Well, that's probably a good sign. It means that something deep down inside of you is telling you, hey, this is the thing that you relate to, and probably that means that your natural abilities will probably lend themselves well to that type of process. Some it's oils and doing those sorts of washes over the top, and you find that people that naturally gravitate towards that and have this sort of affinity for it tend to end up getting quite nice results, and it's because they're just allowing that intuition to help guide them. And so that's that aspect there, but it's also time, right? So you need to just keep that going for some length of years to establish that level. And that's with all things that you try to learn. Any skill that you try to learn, there's going to be that early stage of growth where you're learning new things all the time, and you're leveling up very quickly as you focus on it, and then you hit that sort of plateau or wall stage, which is somewhere in the middle, where you no longer really gain huge leaps and bounds in development, and it takes a little longer. And also, it's not a linear line either. It doesn't just go up and along and then up and then along like a step. It can go down and wonky and this way and that way. This isn't an exact science. There isn't like a mathematical kind of method to the development of skill and style. A lot of factors come into this, but there's some good little early stage principles there that you can think about when you're just beginning in this sort of realm of thinking about it for yourself. But there are many other aspects than just that. So another one is subject matter. And you'll notice as I speak about these things, a lot of it's coming back to, self-analyzing on what you yourself like and dislike, coming up with decisions about what you like and that sort of thing. That helps you to, take forks in the road, rather than hedging your bets on both sides. And that's a good way to sort of narrow in on things that you like without blocking them off. I guess that's a bad analogy. Maybe think of it more as maybe parallel lines that you're going down, but you're capable of jumping these lines at any given point. So they're not blocked off to you. You're sort of going down a super highway, but you're somehow connected to each of them, and you can jump a little bit more like, here's a better analogy, more like the chords on a guitar or like the strings on a guitar, how the fingers are able to move through those strings and the strumming all creates the melody, right? And you can freely move up and down those strings and so on and create new melodies. It's more like that. And you're somewhere between the pick, the strum, and the fingers, hitting those chords on the strings. So, or placing them on those strings. So something like that. That's probably a better analogy. And you're just hitting those notes as you go down that pathway, back and forth, up and down, all of those things. It has all the spatial aspects of the analogy that I'd like to hit. That's probably a better one to think about. And so you've got subject matter. So what in that? Well, that really does inform a lot, because the type of minis that you like and the sort of characters that you sort of veer towards really do influence a lot of those other aspects, color, technique, and so on. Because they demand a certain type of process, because they're a physical object and they've got certain characteristics which are going to force you down certain pathways. So bearing that in mind is something that you want to do when you start thinking about this, because, for instance, if you're like, I'm painting an Infinity Mini, right? So they've got a lot of flat panels, but there's also a lot of crunchy detail because of its size. So it has a combination of the sort of things that might lend itself well to, let's say, an airbrush or certain techniques like that on a lot of the flat panel stuff. But then it's also got these very crunchy details in amongst those flat panel areas. And so that might lend itself to, let's say, more wash type techniques, or even dry brushing, a lot of like edge highlighting techniques. There's many different aspects here that you could go into. Non-metallic metals versus true metallics. These are anime inspired, so a lot of non-metallic sort of stuff works really well on these sorts of minis. So it's lending itself to a whole range of processes that could be for you or not, and then you have to adjust. I love true metallics, so you don't often see Infinity models done with true metallics as opposed to non-metallic. A lot of the imagery that you see for them is in the non-metallic world because it's coming from that anime manga sort of imagery, and so you get a lot of that. It's something that's sort of very close to that genre. So but I love true metallics, so I find my way to incorporate that in and allow some of my own process to influence that, right? So this is now you're getting that in between, that synergy, or that meeting point between the subject matter and what it's demanding, and then your personal set of skills and flavor and aesthetics and likes and dislikes, imposing a little bit of that. That's where you can, I guess, kind of force style a little bit, is that in between the subject and yourself, and you can have that little melting pot in the middle and come up with something unique that does actually feel a lot like your own thing. So alongside subject matter, we've also got inspiration. So this is something that isn't often talked about, regularly in hobby circles, but it is in art circles when you're developing along that way. We talk about inspiration and having like mood boards, inspiration boards. Well, what is that? A series of photos, anything at all that inspires you around your hobby space, on your computer screen, on your phone, etc. Anything like that you go to really replenish your mind with a lot of colorful imagery and a lot of inspiring elements to help build your energy levels or creative levels to then attack the work with fresh eyes. And that's really important. Before I ever start a new project, or I'm thinking about different color schemes or anything that I want to do or experiment on, I always have a look around and see what's out there, not just within miniature space, but also in art generally. And I look for good colors and good combinations of things, designs. I'm a sculptor, so I look at sculptures and all kinds of different areas of life that help, give you that inspiration, even in the outside world, the natural world. Heaven forbid we get out of our little hobby space and step outside, but sometimes it's good to do that. It's a scary place out there, but every now and again it's good to step out and have a look around, because you can see so much in nature. Obviously, that's something that's been in art forever. Taking from nature and getting inspired by it really helps. Looking at the colors that are there, the way everything interconnects with itself, all the organic shapes, everything about nature, and then there's animals and everything else on top of that, not just like plant life and that sort of thing. There's a whole range there. Atmosphere, the sky, sun, light, shadow, all of those things really help to reconnect and get your creative juices going and let you see the world in a new way. The more you go down this road, the more you start seeing like an artist. It's an interesting thing if you start looking at these types of topics and putting that into your workflow, alongside I love painting minis because they're fun. If you have a little bit of that art reflection going on alongside it, you do start to see the world a little differently. You'll start looking at people differently. You'll start noticing the color of the shadow as it falls on someone's face, the light as it's reflecting off a surface, the change in color and mood between, let's say, afternoon or morning. Lots of things like that you'll start noticing noticing, the way water, falls down a certain surface, the way it reflects light, all of those sorts of things start to pop up in your head because you're thinking about it, and you start noticing the small details. You stop and smell the roses, as it were, rather than sort of, getting lost in the trees, or those sorts of analogies, right? Artists are very like cued in or dialed in to the world around them in a very specific way, which helps to see things a little differently. And you may not think of yourself as an artist, although I always tell you guys on these sorts of things, you are engaged in a creative pursuit. So you're an artist of sorts, even if you don't self-actualize as that. You're still engaged in it, no matter how I guess simple idea of it you may think. Both of your hobby work or anything else like that, or you might actually really engage with this art side. You're still in that creative space, and it's very important to acknowledge it, because it's a wonderful part of being human. It's a very unique thing that we get to engage in, and this hobby is an amazing space to do that in. You get such a great plethora of worlds and subjects and stories and all of those sorts of things to really dig into in that process. So that's it's a great thing, and to deny it is kind of sad, because you can have so much fun with it. It doesn't have to be super technical. We don't have to go into all the technical sides, but you can just slowly learn about the things that you just really love, and use that intuition to guide you along that way. You don't have to be super informed on every term and in the language and that sort of thing. It'll come naturally. You'll start to know things like warm and cool colors, and the way colors sit in the spectrum of color, and how they interact with one another, contrasting colors and all those sorts of things. They'll slowly just become meaningful to you as you think about it, because you really do need to have some experience before any of that terminology is ever going to mean anything to you. When you start to see the cool shadow and the warm light and that sort of thing in the world around you, or on your minis, then you'd be like, aha, you get those aha moments, and everything starts to make more sense. But in the early days, none of that really matters too much. It's more about getting in touch with your intuition and allowing that to guide you through the process. So then finally, we look at how does this actually affect your painting, right, of painting miniatures? It's going to slowly just inform how you paint, basically, and the choices you make. And this might affect your color scheme for an army, a future project. There's a lot of aspects here. It might just improve your confidence. There's many positive reasons to think about this and to go down this way a little bit. As I said, you don't have to go into the depths of art theory and so on to understand it. It can initially just be that likes and dislikes personally with what you do, and surrounding yourself with that inspiration and all of that to help guide you on your way. And I think that's a really positive step in anyone's hobby journey to engage with that, because as I said, we have such a great palette to work with. All of these cool minis and these worlds that are being created by people all around the world, and different companies and individual artists like myself and others that produce their own work. There's just so much for you to get into. It's really wonderful. So that's sort of some initial positives. I can't think of any negatives. There isn't really any negatives to this, but it's a good way for us to begin talking about it. I will bring this up again, and we'll look at maybe some more practical applications of technique and style and so on as we move forward, which will eventually lead us to the topic of talent. At some point in the future, I'll discuss it. I have a little bit of a different way of thinking about talent and how that affects people in their lives, and its importance generally. Let's say balanced out over, let's say, hard work, which is normally the thing that everyone goes to. Is the hard work thing is the thing that they focus on, and there is a reason for that. It's a hard topic to discuss, talent versus just getting in there and doing it. You'll often hear that, I'll just paint more, or just draw more, or just sculpt more, or those sort of things. And in a lot of ways, that's correct. You do need the reps to build up your skill. But it as an answer, it has a bit of a shortfall. It doesn't really tell you how to begin or how to grow, really. It's a bit sort of elusive. It doesn't really quite answer the question correctly for someone who wants to know, and I like to find answers to things, or at least that's probably a bit too presumptuous. I mean, at least attempt to come up with, let's say, possible pathways that you can action, something that you can actually go down or do. Like, for instance, thinking about your past work, that's something you can do, and come up with, a result in your mind as to how you feel about that. Like looking at your past work, you can come up with answers. Oh, I like to do this. I like to do that. I see a color that keeps coming up. What does that mean? And that sort of self-reflection helps you to answer those questions moving forward. So there are some practical, actionable things that you can do to engage with it. And I think that's sort of a better way to look at these things, because it gives you something that you can go away and do, rather than sort of keeping it elusive and just saying go and paint more. It doesn't really help you very much. And so yeah, that's where we'll leave it on that. We can go into way more detail, but I'm definitely someone that likes to come up with actionable steps as opposed to just elusive comments. Not that that's not helpful. I mean, you definitely have to work hard. This stuff takes ages. Anything you see on this channel has taken a long time to develop. It's not something that you're going to get instantly. Some processes you will. Some are like that, like in the hobby. Some aspects of this technique stuff and everything will come to you very quickly, and you'll pick it up really fast. But others take much longer, a longer process, and you'll have to do it way more times. But that's like with anything, right? It's any skill you learn. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll be waffling on too long if we get really into this. That's a very long video if I make that one in the future. If you're interested in that sort of thing, let me know in the comments, and we'll look at a way to engage with it that isn't so, I guess, explosive for some, because everyone has a very strong opinion on this, the work versus talent thing. But it is something that I'm passionate about. Being an artist, it's a topic that comes up. But I don't know how important that is for hobbyists generally that aren't necessarily engaged in the art side of things, whether they really mind or care about that particular topic. But it is something fun to talk about. So yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll see how I've gone on my infinity model, on my little battle kitty, and see if it's come up nice. It should. I really like this model, so it's probably going to be pretty cool. But let's go see my final thoughts and the finished mini and have a look, eh? And there we go, Battle Kitty, all done. Let's take a look. So yeah, I really love this model. It's cool. It's got that, that sort of anime stealth vibes, and with the kitty here that it turns into, it's or like Transformers, something like that. It's just a fun model. I really enjoy it. It's one of the fun things about Infinity that I've been enjoying. I've talked about this before, but the sort of the animal kind of fusion thing with the robotic stuff is really interesting and fun. And yeah, and definitely harkens back to those early days of the 80s when Transformers was on the TV, the cartoon series. It really takes me back to that sort of time. And I really enjoyed this. So I hope you've enjoyed it too. And these are just some early thoughts on style and that sort of thing, and just some early ideas to think about. And we'll retouch on this topic again in the future and discuss it. And possibly, as I hinted at the end, maybe possibly talk about things like talent and that sort of thing as well, and how it impacts your progress and that sort of stuff. Because there are definitely useful takeaways from that can help you develop. And I think that's really the point of talking about it. Not so much the impact itself or any of those things. Just like how to utilize it, in your creative process. That's the only reason really to pay any attention to it at all, right? Does it help you? Does it move you along? Do you gain insight from that? And ultimately, does that increase the enjoyment and the pleasure you get out of doing what you do? If it doesn't, then you put it aside. If it does, then, that helps you. That's like a win-win situation, right? So yeah, just some early ideas there, and we'll come back and touch on it again. But there'll be definitely more Infinity models. I'm getting close to getting that warband together, the group of models. So there's a few more there that I've got planned, but yeah, it should be fun for the future. So I'll leave a nice image for him at the end, as I normally do with the paint list. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button, it really helps me out. And I guess I'll catch you on the next one.